Hey everybody, look, what's going on today? I want to share a little information about a job. So, quick backstory. For most of my adult life, I've worked in and out of chemical plants and refineries. And what I want to do today, because I'm asked this question all the time, hey, Mr. Nate, what do I have to do to get on at the plant? And I just want to kind of share that information right now so that you can make an informed decision on if that's something you want to pursue or not. So right off the top, here in South Louisiana, we are very heavily reliant upon the petrochemical industry, and there are plants up and down the Mississippi River and all along the Gulf Coast. The pay is what everyone is always attracted to, and the pay scale is usually pretty strong in these plants. When you work for the company, you have to understand the difference between working for one of the major companies and working for contract organizations that supply labor for these plants. Now, being a contractor is not bad. I don't want to make it sound like, you don't want to be a contractor or none of that. It's nothing to do with it. The thing is, you have to have a viable skill when you work for a contractor. You need to be a welder, pipe fitter, etc., and you can make a very healthy income. A lot of us that weren't welders, pipe fitters, electricians, things of that nature, what we would do is we would test for these plants and try to get into operations. I was a diesel unit refinery operator for well over 10 years of the 23 years that I was at the job that I worked. So I'm not going to call their names, but I worked for the largest oil refinery in Louisiana that happened to be in Baton Rouge. So you can kind of take it from there. First thing out the gate, how do you get this job? So nowadays, the first thing you have to do is make a visit to their website and look for the careers or the employment link, whatever it's called, jobs, careers, whatever it is. And you find either operations or in some cases mechanical, because they will train you in instrumentation and certain things like that. But operations, so we're going to follow the path that I was on. First thing you want to do is see when an available test date, pre-employment test. The pre-employment test in and of itself, it's a fairly difficult test, and it's a very difficult test to even get. It's not always available. They only post available test slots when a hiring cycle is coming up. So my advice on that is check that website daily. If you're serious about trying to get a operations job in one of the major plants, check that website daily, because you never know when it's going to open up and you never know how long it's going to be open. I've seen the test cycles for the pre-test at my particular job open for a day. What would happen is those jobs are so lucrative and so many people are trying to get them that the company will say, we're going to test X number of people. It may be 250, 300 people, 500 people. I don't know what the numbers are. But once those test slots fill up, it closes, and it fills up really fast. So you have to check it daily. My advice, if you're anywhere on the Gulf Coast, check them all. Check them from the Texas Gulf Coast all the way through to the Alabama Gulf Coast. Once you get a test date, make sure that you're prepared for it, because this test is so hard to get. You're not just going to get opportunities all the time to take this test. And I'm not sure of the criteria now to where if you don't pass the test, there's a certain amount of time before you're eligible to take that test again. Okay, so you prepare for the test. So people say, okay, what can I practice with to get ready for this test? The closest thing that I was always told that's a good practice is the ASVAB, the Armed Services Test. I don't know that is necessarily true. I didn't use it to study, but that's what I'm told, because there's no set study guides for it. Okay, so test day arrives. I think the tests now are given online. You take your test and you get a passing score. All right. Once you get that passing score, all that means is that you're eligible now for an interview. Okay. You'll go into the system and they can pull you for any one of the plants for that particular company, anywhere in the region that you signed up for. So if you are in the Baton Rouge area, there's multiple sites in Baton Rouge. Any one of those sites, independent of the others, can call you in for an interview. So you get an interview, you go in, and there's usually a team of 3 people. It may vary, but typically they'll use teams of 3 to conduct the interviews. You go through the process. They're going to ask you standard list of questions. They want to make sure that you're a team player, that you're very well safety oriented, and that you thrive to learn and do what's expected of you. Okay. Interview process is over, and they extend you an offer of employment. You get that offer, you accept it, and now you are an employee. Okay. The next step is the BOT class, basic operator training class. That class is so stressful because at any point, if you wash out on a certain number of the examinations that they give you, they can terminate your employment right there on the spot. I've seen it happen. It doesn't happen a lot, but they are serious about it. And there are subjects in the BOT that are, very heavily math oriented. There's algebra, there is some chemistry, and then there's a lot of courses that they're going to teach you, from pump dynamics, hydraulics, just basic fluid movements. You need to know math in order to troubleshoot and basically work out any issues that you can possibly have on these operating units. These units are very complicated and really, really technical. Okay, so BOT class typically runs, I think it's 7 weeks now. At some point it was 6, so don't hold me to that when it's somewhere in the 6 to 7 week. Once you get close to completion of BOT class and it appears that you're gonna pass, the instructors from the class are gonna assign you to one of the units in either the chemical plant or the refinery. Okay, when you get to your unit, that is where your real training starts, because you'll start learning specific information about the operation of that unit that you're now assigned to. You are a probationary employee for a year, but you're an apprentice for 4 years. And all that apprenticeship means is that you're training. You're qualified once you pass all the qualifications for that unit, and it differs because the units are different sizes. Some of them are more technical than others, and some of them it just takes longer to train on. So when you qualify, all that qualification says is that you're now at a level to where you can go out on that unit and make rounds, and you can do basic tasks on your own. From the beginning, when you first qualify, you won't be expected to go out on your own. Your operator and some of the assistant operators on the unit will usually go with you to make sure that you know what you're doing. You got to remember, these places are very technical, but they're also very dangerous. They're not baking cookies and they're not making candy on these units. These units can really, really create problems. Okay, so you're now qualified, you're still an apprentice, and you're working day to day. Okay, once you get to this point, you're put on shift with your team. Most of the plants that I know of, there may be some few exceptions, but most of the plants work 12-hour shifts, and they work a rotating EO every other weekend off type schedule. What we worked when I was there was, if you worked a 12-hour shift on Monday and Tuesday during the day, our report time was at 5 in the morning, and you work 12-hour shifts, so you would get off at 5 in the evening. You would be off Wednesday and Thursday, and then when you come to work Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you're working 12 hours at night. It rotates. So if you work days on Monday, Tuesday, you're off Wednesday, Thursday, and then you work Friday, Saturday, Sunday night. Then you're off Monday, Tuesday, and then you work Wednesday, Thursday days, and then you're off Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and it just keeps rotating. That schedule is pretty tough, because you have to understand that you can't burn the candle on both ends. You have to get your rest to where you can work those 12-hour shifts. 12-hour shifts in a oil refinery or a chemical plant are really difficult. Some of those days are really, really taxing, and you're just beat when you leave there. So it's really hard to kind of have a regular outside personal life when you work in these chemical plants. One of the other things that happens a lot is what we call forced overtime. So if I'm working Monday and Tuesday days, 12-hour shifts, and a vacancy becomes available on Wednesday and Thursday days or nights due to an illness, or someone has vacation, or anything, if that vacancy is on that shift and no one has volunteered to work it, they will do what's called forced overtime, and it operates from a list, and they can basically make you come to work. So I've worked Monday and Tuesday, and let's say I plan to go to a Christmas program at my kid's school on Wednesday because I was scheduled off. Well, now I'm forced to work Wednesday, so there's no Christmas program. I can't tell them no. And if no one else volunteers and it's my turn to be forced, I just have to work. So that happens a lot. It depends on the units that you're on and the manning levels at that time. If they have enough employees, forces typically don't happen a lot. But if a unit is short because of retirements, or people resigning, or people being transferred or moving up into supervision, and they don't fill those spots quick enough, then there's just more slots that has to be covered with overtime. And at first it's good, because you look at it and you say, I want to make this overtime because I want to make this extra money. But then you realize you're making all this money, but you don't have any time off. So you quit volunteering for overtime, and you just take your forces whenever they happen, because the force list rotates and it happens to everybody on that unit. It happens for holidays, weekends, just anytime that unit is short. That's when it happens. So the manning requirements are really, really tough. Just understand going in, you're going to make good money. You're going to make a fair amount of overtime. In some cases, you're going to make a lot of overtime. Different units have to come down. They have to shut units down periodically to do what's called a turnaround. Turnarounds are when we do mechanical work on units to retrofit and upgrade and repair. And in our case, on our units, we had catalysts that were in reactors, and the catalysts would have to be changed out periodically. So you had to shut the units down to do this. When units are under turnaround, the companies are losing money every day that those units are down. So they want them back up as fast as possible. They want to do it safe, but they want it as fast as possible. So everyone works every day. During turnarounds, you work every day. In the current systems, they will implement some safety days periodically, and they can come every 7th day. Some will do every 8th day, or some may do every 14th day. The very first turnaround I worked, we weren't doing safety days. I worked 67 12-hour nights in a row. All right. The money was good, but it really, really takes a toll on on your physical and your mental being, because you know that you're going out every day, and turnarounds are really hard work. So that kind of covers the shifting and the scheduling of it. The pay varies, but using my old job as an example, if you're an apprentice, that first year as a probationary apprentice, you still have the ability to make over $100,000. That's the first year. Once you are a 2-year apprentice, and once you become a full assistant operator after your 4th year, it's not uncommon to make $120,000 to $140,000. Once you become an operator, 150 to 160 isn't out of the question if you work enough overtime. Base case, if you don't work any overtime, I think the base pay is still just approaching or just over $100,000. So the pay is there. That's what attracts a lot of people to those jobs. The benefits are really strong. The health insurance, the retirement, everything that you could want from working a job, it's going to be kind of top tier. Now, the work is tough. Sometimes the environment is a little difficult to deal with, but you're very well compensated. Safety in the plants. Safety was a huge component of working where I worked. That doesn't mean that you didn't have issues from time to time. I've seen fires. I've seen chemical releases. It's just the nature of the beast. As much as we work to try to prevent those things from happening, sometimes it's just you just can't help it. We're trained to be able to deal with it. Our company has an internal fire department. Everyone that worked there received annual fire training. You were expected to understand and know how to fight a fire in a small case, and in cases where it's just out of hand, you needed to know when to evacuate. So safety protocol is very, very strong, and they teach you everything that they want you to know and understand about safety in the facility. There's usually safety programs going on. There's usually a way to grade and judge everyone's safety level, everyone's awareness to safety, and everyone's knowledge of safety. All in all, most of the things that people, especially in this area, know about the plants, hear about the plants, it's true to a level. I've had a lot of contractors sometimes say, "Hey man, you guys make all the money, but we do all the work. You guys don't do anything." That's not true at all. When I was younger, I used to drive by these plants and I would see all of the pipes and everything. I was like, there's no way that people in that plant know where all of those pipes go or what's in them and all that stuff. And yeah, you do. When you train, you will train rigorously, and you will know all of the flows of all of the material on your units. You need to know the temperatures that they're at. You need to know the pressures that they're at, just in case you have an issue, you have a release, you know what material it is and all the other parameters around it. So company employees that are in operations are the ones that are expected to troubleshoot and help emergency personnel come out whenever you have an issue. Contractors are evacuated from the unit. We account for them and we get them out. So it's not so much how much work you do, it's how much you know and what you're responsible for. There are some days though where you will work really, really hard. And there are some days when you don't. I mean, surveillance rounds, normal days, sometimes normal nights can be fairly slow. Talking about shifting earlier, sleep was a real big issue for me. It was really hard for me to transition from working days to working nights and then back to working days, because I couldn't flip my sleep habits really easily. It was especially hard for me coming off of nights. If I get off, if I work nights all weekend, that means I get off Monday morning at 5 a.m. Okay, so now when I go home, because I'm geared toward working nights, it's hard for me to go to sleep, because in 2 days I'm expected to get up and be at work at 5 in the morning on Wednesday. So I have to transition my sleep patterns to days over the course of 2 days. And it's hard to sleep at night when you just spent 3 nights or more awake for 12 hours. So that part was the hardest thing for me to adjust to in all the years I was there. All the years that I was there, that was still tough for me right up until I retired. And by the way, I retired 2 years ago. So that's one of the things that, especially when you're younger, you have a tendency to still want to go out with friends and family and do things. And based on your work schedule, pace yourself and understand how and when you need to do certain things, because it can be pretty tough on you. So I'm gonna wrap it up. All in all, if you seek to go and get a job in one of these plants working for the company, by all means, go for it. It was the worst, best job I've ever had. My family was put in a position of where we were able to do things, and I was able to have resources for certain things as my kids were younger and growing up. And it was a really good income if you have to have a regular job. So do your homework, do your due diligence, and research all of the companies in your area. See what they make, see what their hiring process is, and just go for it. Start applying. I don't think that you'll regret it, but just understand that it's tough work and it's not easy. I don't want to sound like my contractors that used to work with us and say, hey man, y'all don't do anything. Well, that's not true. We did a lot. So thanks for checking out the video, and listen, we'll find another subject and we'll talk about it, and see you guys in the next video.